his hair was something as well. I appreciate that his hair was like Gen Z on trend.
Yeah, like that actor is also on the CW next week. Yeah.
Hey everybody, we're the Good Doctors of Abbey Research. I'm Dr. Erin.
And I am Dr. Kristen.
And you are so very welcome to our tiny little corner of the internet where we are here to talk about Handmaid's Tale Season 5, Episode 5, 5, Fairy Tale.
Not of New York, sadly.
Sadly, not of New York. If you don't get that reference, ask Google. It's our favorite Christmas song. Hilarious. Mm-hmm. That's a story for another day. What is a story for today, however, is what took place in this episode. We're going to be breaking it down into Camp Mayday and No Man's Land shenanigans, and then we're going to talk about Serena and the Wheelers, which is like a fun band name, Serena and the Wheelers.
Serena and the Wheelers.
It's not.
They do
not
Americana.
So fun.
They're like early Mumford before they got all like emos. Yeah.
The band name is way more fun than Serena Joy is actually having at the Wheelers, but we'll get to that. So the episode opens and we're with the vaunted trio of Moira, Luke, and June, and they're driving in the Magic Subaru because Lily has called them from Camp Mayday and says that there's a guardian coming over with information about the wives' schools. They run into an anti-immigration demonstration on the way, which I want to point out because that's definitely an undercurrent in this portion of the episode. Because then when they get to Camp Mayday, Lily is telling them that they're going to have to move the camp because Canadian Border Patrol is really cracking down and doesn't want them there and is not letting as many people over. And so there is this anti-immigrant, anti-refugee sentiment happening in Canada, which should not go unmentioned. And you know, we'll get to what happens at the end of the episode in a few minutes, but I'm not sure that those were Galadian forces. If somebody saw something clear, like they could have been lots of things for all that I saw and was able to see.
Yeah, physically I couldn't see anything because the light, I couldn't see half the episode. It was really dark. So if I've missed details, I'm very sorry, but I cannot adjust the lighting on my television as easy as my screen. So mea culpa. But let me say I found this really, really interesting while we're talking about it, because I feel like in seasons past, we've been led to believe that Canada was a little bit more benevolent than this, it was, Canadians were, if not happy, then neutral to open up their borders to these people. And so I have a couple questions. One is, did we just make that up because you and I love Canada? Possible. Or is this it's been now going on so long that Canadian citizens are like, we're giving a lot of our tax dollars to these folks. Can you just can you just bomb Gilead and get it over with? We're not going to get that many details because this is an undercurrent to them, I think, so far anyway. But it was one of the most interesting, the signs those people were holding. I mean, obviously, Bruce Miller has some feelings about the migrant crisis at the border right now. I was ready for them to joke that, they flew them to Nova Scotia or something. But I wish I understood a little bit more if this was a Canadian evolution, or if I misunderstood at the beginning, or if this is an about turn and a lack of continuity.
I mean, it's possible that we're ascribing our understandings of modern Canada to this version of Canada, but I think in my mind, it's kind of it would make sense, and I would agree with them that it's kind of an evolution. As we, politics change in countries, especially during prolonged conflicts or after conflicts. We don't know how long the war was with like the overthrow of the American government. Like we just, a couple of years, because they took Hannah when they were fleeing what was happening in America, and Hannah is 12. I guess she's 12 now. Although her age has never really made sense to me. But yeah, I'm intrigued by it, and especially given the comments that we got from Larry, as Brenda on the Patreon says, but Commander Lawrence saying to Commander Putnam, like, if we keep our borders closed and our walls up, this country will die.
Yeah.
So
it will.
So I think it's more than maybe an undercurrent, because if you've got that contravening perspective from Gilead, at least with Commander Lawrence, Putnam was right whether or not he's going to be successful convincing the commanders to let people back in. I don't know, Larry. I've been to New Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I don't know what you're trying to do. No, I'm kidding. I know it was a biblical reference. But we'll keep an eye on that, but I think it's really interesting. Also, since you brought up the biblical reference, a brief reminder that Bethlehem was where Jesus was born, but was immediately under threat of persecution. And immediately after Jesus' birth, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph fled to Egypt. Yeah.
So they were only there for a really brief time. It's a very political thing, as well as the birth of Christ. It was a time of great duress for the Roman Empire, for the Jews in the Roman Empire. So again, symbolism that they are intentional with when it comes to some scriptural stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And I kept thinking about what you told us last week about Ezra, as we had Ezra in this episode, but we'll get to Serena and the Wheelers. So we get to Camp Mayday, and Lily informs them that it's no longer safe for the Guardian to come over and make the drop that he was supposed to, and so they, the mission is off or whatever. It's on pause. Because of this changing situation at the border. And that's when Luke and June decide, hey, we can be rebels. We can be covert people on the border, because we care about our daughter. That's what other qualifications do we need? And they decide that they'll do it. We've got this. It's June fucking Osborne, man. Whatever. Luke is so experienced, y'all. Don't question Luke's experience. Sorry. A little salty about Luke in this episode, just like last episode, because of what happens later. So, too long didn't read. They go into the forest. They find the Gen Z Guardian. I called him Baby Guardian first, and then I was like, oh my god, he's so Gen Z. I'm just going to call him Gen Z Guardian. Just wants people to be able to do what they want. And be friends.
Yeah, if he was in America, he'd be wearing Crocs.
Yeah, for sure. With like knee-high socks. And he'd have a mullet. And
fun little like pins in the thing, like Yeah.
Ooh. His hair was something as well. I appreciate that his hair was like Gen Z on trend.
Yeah, like that actor is also on the CW next week.
If he shows up in the next season of Outer Banks.
Oh my gosh. I was like, oh, they filmed this in Toronto, not Vancouver, right? I wonder if he had to catch a flight. Like, it was he is so earnestly CW, it was adorable.
I know, bless. So they meet up with Gen Z Guardian, and he's like, we can't do the exchange here, it's not safe, there's someplace we can go, and he takes them to an abandoned bowling alley, in no man's land, in his border area, which is where he hangs out all the time, because you know what, the woods are cold, and he's 18 and he gets bored, and no shade to Jaden, I would do the same thing. We do learn that his name is Jaden, because Luke is like, hey man, let's bowl and have fun and make memories, Because that's what we should do on a super dangerous top secret mission to get covert intelligence. 100%.
I just like shook with nerves this entire storyline. Like
this entire storyline. Yeah, I was like, the Guardians are going to find them. Like, something bad is going to happen. Like, you just knew it wasn't going to go well.
No.
You just knew. And, you know, they hang out there for a while. Kids got beer in a cooler. Luke plays Let's Stay Together. I will say it was hilarious when Jaden was like, did you write that song? And he was like, I did.
It reminded me of that Beatles movie that where everybody
where
forgot the Beatles.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, it was a good storyline. And it did give us a conversation that we talked about offline just now. I'm not sure what they wanted us to get from this conversation, but I do think it was important that they had it. Where Jaden says, you know, I think Luke says, I love bowling. And Jaden says, I think I did too. I think my dad might have taken me before.
Yeah.
And then they talked for a few minutes about what he did and didn't remember and kind of what he thought about Gilead. And that's where we get his super Gen Z response where he's just like, I just think families should be together. And kind of disengaged from the ideology, the fierce ideology that we see from like the Putnams and the Lawrences.
What I took from it is that the show is kind of telling us that Hannah probably doesn't remember them.
Oh.
And that might be what because they exchanged a look. And so I wonder if that's what they were thinking. And then the other thing is like, hey, even if Hannah doesn't remember you, she may not be like baptized into this crazy the way that Serena wants to make you. So it was like a both and there. But the immediate thing I wrote down was, oh, guys, remember, Hannah doesn't remember you guys. Because that's the last time she saw June, she didn't know who June was.
Yeah, and she was scared of her because they had, like, shown her pictures or something. Like, she was scared of June. Yeah.
So that's, I'm very worried that we're going to have, like, Luke's going to completely shatter because it has never occurred to him that Hannah wouldn't remember who he was.
Yeah, bless his naive cotton socks, our Luke. I did... I guess I think it was important for him to go on this mission even just to teach him a lesson that, like, he has no idea what he's up against.
June found it super sexy when he got all, like, vigilante, so...
She did. That's true. But, like, when they found that body in the forest walking, like... which was fascinating, and we could spend like 45 minutes talking about what that meant and who did it and everything. But they find a body hanging who's clearly been hung with a sign on it that says rapist. And Luke's like, is that Gilead? June was one of the best lines of this season. Gilead doesn't use words. I was like, no, they do not, June Osborne. But yeah, so I think this, I'm not sure it was necessary because it did feel kind of fillery and just super suspenseful because you knew something bad was going to happen. But maybe it was to help show Luke that, like, harden Luke a little bit. I don't know, because he was real upset at the end. So let's get to the end. What happens at the end of this portion of the narrative and at the end of the episode is Jaden says, well, I'll take you back now. It's fine. And Jaden's chit-chatting with his new best friends and steps on a landmine because he was distracted. And I wrote in my notes at this point, this is why we don't do names in rebellions, Luke. This is why we don't form personal relationships with people. I know you were being a nice person. I know you were going on your human instinct, and that's lovely. But there's a reason why some people are soldiers and some people aren't, and you just got that kid's leg blown off.
Yep.
So please stop walking around like because you care about Hannah, you can be a part of this revolution. And that may sound harsh to people out there, but I mean it. And you could hear him, like, they had to leave Jaden because presumably the Guardians started coming, other Guardians, and he was just, like, screaming at him, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. And I was like, I know you are. I know you are, buddy. And then they're running in the great expanse, open landscape towards the Canadian border, and they get stopped by trucks with headlights and men who looked like, and I don't mean this in a derogatory but explanatory way, some of the people who showed up for the January 6th insurrection. Like they just looked like they had, like hooded sweatshirts on and, sort of balaclavas. I wasn't clear if they were Guardians or not.
I don't think they are, because the preview for 6, she says, "Who are you?"
Oh, see, you watched the preview, smart girl. I didn't watch it yet. I always forget that it exists. Okay, so then I would imagine that that's very clearly that they're not Guardians. So, could be Canadian Border Patrol, could be like a militia group if there's this anti-immigration sentiment in Canada, right?
Yeah.
Like they could be armed and preventing people from crossing. All they saw was 2 people running through the field from Gilead.
Yeah.
They don't know that they came from Canada originally.
The only other thing that we see in regards to that in the preview is that we see Mr. Wheeler say June Osborne's been apprehended.
Oh. So maybe it's like the pro Gilead. Ooh, there's lots of groups, potential groups out there. So what a wonderful transition. Shall we transition to Serena and the Wheelers? Y'all, this was creepy. It's super Stepfordy, and our Serena's got herself in a big old mess. What would you like to say about this, my dear friend?
Well, first of all, let us let you know that our May Day moment for this episode is going to be discussions of all of Serena's flashbacks to Gilead. So we're going to talk about her conversations with Mrs. Putnam. We're going to talk about, even touch a little bit on Lydia and that scene, but all of that and kind of the parallels we see, especially what I'm calling the foster care hallway, especially seeing that parallel. That's the May Day moment. So make sure to join us for that. Again, if this is your first time with us, hello and welcome again. Our May Day moments are for our Patreons, which we have one tier because we want everybody to come and play. It's $5 a month, $7 Canadian dollars. I think at this point it's £5 and €5. Well, considering where the state of international banking is.
Yes.
So come join us. We do a special we take one topic that we would discuss every week and put it over on the Patreon. And this week it is going to be Serena's flashbacks because they're meaty and fascinating. So the other thing I wanted to bring up, in terms of storyline, Serena just keeps finding out that she's completely and utterly screwed. Like, yeah, that's
to her own shock.
Yeah.
Like,
I wanted to say really briefly, recovering evangelical hat. Let me get my notebook really quick. So, this Gilead Fertility Center idea, where it's a cover for the Gileadian theology, is exactly what crisis pregnancy centers are.
Yeah.
For anyone who is not familiar with that movement here in the U.S., that's pretty much how they started. Like, obviously not with Gilead, but they realized, some of the bigger companies that do this realized that people were not just going to come and sit on a cornerstone and hear the gospel, but everybody's interested in fertility, and teenagers in pregnancy are always in crisis, and they could step in and help people.
Yeah, and that's where
have their babies.
That's where Janine ended up in a crisis pregnancy center in a flashback with, I think, the child that she aborted, or the child that she kept. I'm not sure, because one abortion, one born child. But that was 100% a crisis pregnancy center because they tried to guilt and shame her out of terminating the pregnancy.
Yeah, so I had this moment where I was like, why isn't this already part of their playbook? Like, you knew that these existed in the before times. They were, I'm assuming, incredibly effective in the before times, because statistically, they have, depending on what effective, your definition of effective is, they are massive in the Western, everywhere. They're massive everywhere. I've seen them in Malawi. I've seen them in Northern Ireland. I've seen them everywhere. Yeah. So I was like, I just sat there and I was like, why is this revolutionary? Like, Serena's like, it was my initiative. I was like, no, sweetheart, it was from the 1950s. Like, when the pill happened, we got crisis pregnancy centers. Like,
I guess, like,
you're not changing the world here.
Yeah.
Like, it was just weird.
Yeah.
That was weird to me.
That was, that's a great point.
Yeah.
I missed it because I don't have that evangelical bone. But yeah, that's a great point.
I was like, yeah. And then Yvonne Strahovski continues to not, like, her face acting is great, but I think she's also, I don't know if we're losing some nuance, I think, because she has so much to do.
It's a lot.
And so some of her face acting, I'm like, what exactly are you thinking here? Like,
yeah,
what?
Yeah.
Because you're using the same face for about 7 different scenarios. So, like, and they're like Jonathan Demme devotees on this show, and they love a close-up. So, like, we see everything so much. But, yeah, so I hated the bowling alley nonsense, I'll say. Like, it really, to me, felt like spinning our wheels in seasons 3 and 4. But I thought this, like, watching Serena slowly understand what she's done to herself was fascinating. And I thought well constructed.
It was really, it felt to me a little bit like shades of Get Out.
Okay.
Kind of like the slow awakening, realizing that, like, you know, everything that looks really, really nice is actually a trap.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, a pretty solid narrative structure to kind of use in this, and I thought they did a really good job of it. I'm fascinated by where they're going with Serena. And I didn't see this coming, even though I know Serena's been screwed ever since Fred turned traitor and died. But I didn't know what they were going to do with her. And the fact that we learned that, like, Ezra might not just be looking out for her, and he is clearly, like, an employee of the Wheelers. The fact that we learned that Mr. Wheeler speaks to Gilead and, like, spoke to the commanders after her phone call. We learned that the other wives that are Serena acolytes, I guess we could call them, to use biblical parlance, are exceptionally desperate to have children, which is where Serena gets the idea for the fertility center. And desperate people do desperate things. And yeah, it was really well done. It creeped me out because I was like, these people are too perfect and too robotic and, like, super, super pious or projecting piety, and like, towards the end of of that portion of the episode, I was just writing in a lot of all caps. Especially, we get the scene Mr. Wheeler finally comes in and speaks to Serena. They're going to go ahead with her proposal, but she's not going to be involved in it. Again, Serena, why don't you understand? You keep choosing Gilead. Like, that's the thing that kind of is bonkers in my head. Like, she could have gone with America.
I just think she absolutely thought that they were going to welcome her back in and she was going to be the new leader.
Child, you have only ever been useful in how you have served men. And you served as Fred's wife, which was an important position. And then he turned traitor and got himself killed. And now you're pregnant, and guess what, child? Gilead only cares about your womb.
Yeah, but it's like, again, like, her plan was to get married again. So she propositioned Larry. Larry was like, no. And then she didn't have time to come up with a new plan. So I think, like, she understood on a level that she had to be married to have power.
She had to do something,
It never occurred to her that Lawrence would say no. She had no contingency plan.
She had no backup plan, no. And so my all caps notes were, are they going to turn Serena into a handmaid? are they going to take her baby?
Mine were,
And
woman, you are an incubator. They're going to give the Wheelers your baby.
yeah,
That's my
because
gut.
they're already making the argument that she's too much trouble. She's too rebellious. She's unwomanly, right? That's why she has a missing finger. And then even the comment that Mrs. Wheeler made earlier where she said, like, wives, I wrote it down because I was like, oh boy. Serena's like, you can join the call. They'd love to hear from you. Serena. Did you get hit in the head, child? And she says, wives shouldn't burden their homes with business things. And walks away. And I was like, girl, you are being judged. And you are being, like, held prisoner for your baby.
It fascinates me, and we've said this, before in other episodes, but it's like another layer of so there's a theology called complementarianism.
Ooh.
And another theology called egalitarianism. So complementarianism is the belief that it's like separate but equal in gender terms. So men and women have different roles, have different responsibilities, but because of their difference and the difference power, they're actually equal. It's just they have separate roles. It's the exact same logic as separate but equal with the races. So that's where complementarianism is what you see in Gilead in a lot of ways. It's just taken to this exceptional extreme where the women can't read and everything else. The way complementarianism usually looks in our life is like that women can't be pastors. Women take care of the children exclusively. They do all of the household labor. Complementarianism is a lot of traditional family values. Egalitarianism, on the other hand, which is actually biblical, is that everybody is created in their own sense, in their own being, in the spirit of God. And so they bring whatever they bring to the table, regardless of their internal or external reproductive organs. It's not separate but equal. It's everyone is equal.
Yeah.
And you work out the relationship for yourself. However, I have observed for many years, and there's a very famous case, couple of very famous women in Christian circles who have switched from complementarianism to egalitarianism, because they realized they were holding this very strange double standard, where complementarianism worked for everyone else for the women to take care of the household and everything else. But for leaders of the complementarianism movement, they should have been allowed to function as equals because God chose them and set them apart from everyone else. And this is Serena Joy to a T. Like, God blessed her, gave her the vision. There was a whole, again, we're getting all of her old God language in the flashbacks. We'll get into this a little bit in the Mayday moment. But, like, her theology is set on the fact that she is special. And that, right now, we are watching that crumble. Because she defined being special in her own brain, that she brought something special to the table. Well, the problem with complementarianism is that if you have internal reproductive organs, that is all you're allowed to bring to the table.
Yeah.
And she just thought you were the exception. She thought she was the exception. And it's like, it's unbelievably, just everyone to remember this. If you believe something to your core, it takes a long time and a lot of trauma to rewrite that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I think that was such a great distinction. And I think she's seeing that. I mean, we've gotten shades of it this whole season where she has shown like abject fear on her face.
Yeah.
I think at times she knows she's in a precarious situation. But
she can't quite believe it.
Yeah, and like I think she thinks the fact that she was a wife that got pregnant protects her in a way that she's learning. So I think she thought she had a bit more protection than she was hoping that, or she thought she had a bit more protection than she actually has.
Because she took the pregnancy as more signs that God has called her and blessed her.
Right. Right. And that's, she is in one hell of a pickle. And
Yeah.
in my head, what I saw happening was I was like, cool, the Wheelers are going to take the baby. They're already making the argument that she is not, like, fit. You heard Putnam on the phone. I mean, Putnam's a dick, but he was like,
Putnam's the most powerful.
You were supposed to not, you were supposed to create good PR for Gilead. And what did you do? And then, I loved that he was like, well, someone should take care of June Osborne. I was like, really? Really, Putnam? Really? It's Serena's job? It's not your... Okay, buddy. But yeah, I mean, she's in a real sticky situation. And my thought was, cool, they're going to take her baby. And then I don't know if they're going to keep her or if they're moving their way towards, like, justifying using her womb in a way in which she gets forcibly raped. I don't know. I think it's going to turn Serena the other way. Because God help the person that tries to take another child away from that woman.
I can see this going so many ways, I think, but like the chief ones of the story that they've already tried to tell. Because like when she thought like she had Nicole, she was ready to stand up to Gilead. And that's why she lost the finger. Like she was ready to make waves. So, and obviously, she overthrew the American government. You know what I mean? So, like, she's got that in her. So, could I see her taking down Gilead with June in season 6? It's within her.
Sure.
Because, like, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. But I can also see her, like, becoming a handmaid and, like, shattering like Janine has. So, like, I don't know. Yeah. But I find her storyline significantly more fascinating now than June's, I will be honest.
Right now, yeah. Because I think with June's, it's going to take too long to play out. I think I might be okay with where they get with June at the end of this season.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
I think it's going to take too long to play out wherever they're going. Once they got her to the point where she was starting to see herself more clearly and she was in therapy and she was recognizing her trauma, I'm not sure where there was to go with June.
No, completely fair. Yeah.
Like narratively, like going back on the story that they've told so far, she's only ever wanted to take down the Waterfords or get her daughter back. And take down the Waterfords, take down Gilead, and get her daughter back.
So they have to tread water a little bit with her, because now her only desire is essentially the end game.
Yeah, and I think she knows at this point, at least the June they're showing us in the last couple episodes, that she can't just rock up to Gilead and get Hannah back, and that it's going to be really hard and it might be impossible. And that doesn't mean she's not going to try, but she's not like guns ablazing June like in past seasons. But we did learn that Hannah is still in the wives' school, but that they're churning them through there quickly. Again, a country needs bodies to survive. And if they're losing bodies and losing wombs.
I really loved Luke's indignation, like, my daughter is 12. Brief reminder, there's a lot of countries in this planet where girls are absolutely married at 12.
I was just like, where did you come from?
Have you not Googled anything in 5 years? It just, was really...
I know.
I don't know. I mean, there are definitely people that should know how the world works and don't. And so I don't know if he's just like the voice of the audience for whom it would not occur to them that 12-year-olds are routinely married off. It's possible. Like the audience, somebody in the audience was going to be indignant, so they needed him to be indignant. But like, it's a thing. It's a thing. And it's not even illegal in some places. So
much like
just because it's not something that happens in North America does not mean it is not something that happens.
Yeah, much like crisis pregnancy centers, they've been around for a minute or two. Sweet baby Luke, as I'm going to start calling him.
Yeah.
Like,
And
they
again,
care that your daughter's 12.
No, that means that she's menstruating. Congratulations. I guarantee you that's when they graduate them from the wives' school.
Yeah, for sure.
When they become ripe plums for the picking, because the plum name for them is creepy as hell.
Whoa. It was very Gilead. It was very, like, okay, Gilead.
Yeah, we see you.
That was peak Gilead vibes that they were giving off with the plums. Yeah, so we leave the episode again with June being captured again, this time with Luke, which is the only different part of that scenario. I wrote my last note for this was, I wish I had emotions about it, but honestly, what did they expect to happen?
I was nervous that whole time because I was honestly very nervous for Jaden. And then I got like, this, obviously this episode was dark and it had to be, and that's fine. We're not talking like, Game of Thrones where like they could have just bought more lanterns. They usually light it a lot better than this particular episode. I just struggled to see. But the body type of the actor who plays Mr. Wheeler was close enough to the body type of the actor who plays Jaden that I got very nervous that like they would not show us him, and I was like, oh my god, is this revealed that he's Mr. Wheeler? So I was nervous because of that. I was nervous about like how bad it was going to be, I guess. But like, yeah, they were always going to get kidnapped. Or they were always going to get captured, or they were always like, something was always going to go wrong because it's episode 5. So like, I hate to be the cynical television watcher, but it's episode 5. Something has to happen. And that something is not them miraculously rescuing Hannah based on one shred of intel.
Yeah. I mean, something had to happen for the story that they were telling, and also, as you astutely said, because it's episode 5 and we're halfway through the season.
Episode 5.
We don't make the rules. We just talk about television on our YouTube channel. So I think we'll put a pause in our Handmaid's Tale conversation for now and pick it back up for episode 6. As Dr. Kristen said, we do get hints in the trailer that June does not know who her captors are, thus alluding to the fact that they might not be Guardians, or that they probably aren't Guardians. So I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about with that. Maybe they'll show us the Lydia and Janine in the next episode. Who knows? Does anybody know what's happened to Esther?
I think there was a Janine shot in the preview.
Cool.
So
we'll see what episode 6 brings. We'll be back with you the next week for that. And as Dr. Kristen said, if you enjoyed this and you would like even more Handmaid's Tale content, please hop over to our Patreon. The links are in the downstairs. To check out not only our Mayday moment for this episode, which we'll be talking about Serena's flashbacks, but all the other Mayday moments for the first 4 episodes for $5. And you're right, it is exactly £5 because I have a friend in Northern Ireland right now who was like, I just took everyone out to dinner for $100. And I was like, I'm glad for you. So while the economy is tanking and the global markets are in distress, join our Patreon. What better time? We hope to see you there on the Patreon or next week for episode 6. Until then, take care, everybody.
Bye, everybody.